Okay folks, 2:15, so if you're okay we can get started. I would like to introduce to you Iassen Deenitchin, and he will be our speaker today this afternoon. And we actually share a lot of background, very similar background. We are both from originally Eastern Europe. We both commute home. I fly from Boston, he flies from Amsterdam. So that's the difference. We have both two kids. He's a great fun guy. And you will have a great, enjoyable presentation.
Robotic process automation and how to get more out of it. How to get more out of it in the context of end-to-end process management. And how to really take it in a very structured way from design to execution. Without boring you much, I just want to take 30 seconds to introduce IMG and who we are, because I think the context is also important for our RPA efforts. We're a global bank. We're present in around 45 geographies, roughly 15 of them, mostly Europe, Australia and Asia, is full universal banking. 45 of them, including the 15 ones that I mentioned, are wholesale banking only. So we have a pretty sizable and truly global footprint, which, especially when you start something new like RPA, may as well be quite a change. We actually started with robotics quite some time ago. We already have a history. We started essentially in 2007 when IMG merged with another large bank in the Netherlands, Postbank. And then we actually used some scripts to help move around 1 million customers. We estimated that if we wouldn't have done that, we'd have actually have to invest a lot in both FTEs and IDEs. So this is what we consider the pioneership of RPA and IMG. Pretty much at the same time we started with end-user computing in Poland. When a local team, just following an idea that they had, came up with macros, if you will, that were installed on the desktop of every employee to help them with routine tasks and simple computations. Then it took quite some time until we decided what to do with RPA, and it was not until 2016, 2017 when we really built it as a global program. This is when we really moved from the two countries to running RPA on a global scale. Some of the main cornerstones of our model. And then we're going to go into details of each of them. First and foremost, we do not see RPA as an improvement lever on its own. We always want to see RPA as one of the levers to improve our processes end-to-end. Second, and this was quite difficult, as with every new language, it takes time and effort to learn. We're now speaking the same process in RPA language globally. This is really helping us a lot to leverage and get more out of it. Third, a new approach that we introduced a year ago, every RPA opportunity starts with process discovery. End-to-end process discovery where we look for improvement opportunities not just for RPA, but for all the improvement levers that we could use in order to fix the process. We have a global framework. We have developed it in the head office. And we're both asking and supporting countries and local units to implement it, because this is saving them lots of time and again is helping us maximize the bang for our investment. Last but not least, we had to introduce proper governance with a very clear role for the Global CoE, for the Global Center of Expertise, as well as the local ones, how they interact together and how they help local users in developing and implementing bots. Let's go into each and every one of them in some more detail. You saw this in the video, let me spend a minute on that. EDMM, eliminate, digitize, move, manage. We see this coming as a whole and ideally in the right sequence. What does that mean? When we look at an end-to-end process, we always first try to eliminate non-value adding activities. Think of it as lean, think of it as quick wins, think of it as things that you can do without robotics or without automation. Then, if we can digitize something, if we can automate something with structural IT solutions, that's always the preferred method for us. So if we can develop a fancy front-end application for clients to open a daily banking account, that's of course the best option. However, oftentimes this is not feasible because of limitations of time or IT resources or budgets. So then, if we cannot develop a structural IT solution within 9 months, then we robotize. Then, when we have cleaned the process, when we have eliminated, and we have decided what to implement, what to improve with structural IT and what to robotize, then the activities which are still left to be performed manually, then we still question ourselves, should we perform them where we're performing them now? Or should we move them somewhere else? This is what MOVE is about. Moving steps of processes within the same organizational unit, across teams in the same location, or even to different locations, be it an ING nearshore facility or outsourcing. Okay? And then we repeat this again. A couple of years later, we'll look at the same end-to-end process and we'll follow exactly the same sequence. It doesn't always work like that in practice. We may have reasons to deviate, but this is our thinking, this is our philosophy, this is the best way that we believe in when we talk about end-to-end process. This is a radical shift in RPA compared to what we were still doing a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, our local units were coming up with bottom-up tactical initiatives to robotize something. So they'll be looking at the process, they would see a manual activity, they would talk to IT, there would be no budget, and then they would say, okay, let's develop a robot. We're still doing that, but less and less of it. Now, we are identifying RPA opportunities from an end-to-end process perspective, and we're questioning and challenging ourselves what are the right things to RPA, and what are also the things that we can improve in a different way. Speaking the same process in RPA language. That's very important. That's very important for any institution. That's even more important for a global institution of 55,000 people spanning across different continents. This is our definition of an end-to-end process. A process is what we do as people and systems to deliver a meaningful outcome to our customers and businesses. If you want to put it in a different way, this means completely satisfying a customer need. Everything that we do to completely satisfy a customer need. Where the customers are the external customers, and then the internal customers are our stakeholders. Why do we do that? Because anything short of completely satisfying a customer need is actually not executing an end-to-end process. Why is this important? If you have a customer that applies for a mortgage, and you only collect their documents, and you tell them, well, yes, maybe I'm going to give you the loan, but you don't disburse the money, you haven't fulfilled any need. Thus, you haven't executed the end-to-end process. That's very important for us for RPA as well, because now we use our global process catalog. This is, on a page, our end-to-end process catalog, where by value chain and core and supporting processes, we describe all the roughly 150 end-to-end processes that we have in ING. When we have this in place, then we can start mapping our RPA opportunities to these same end-to-end processes. A year ago, if you would ask any of our local units to tell you what their local RPA backlog would be, or their local pipeline would be, they would come up with their own language, with definitions of tactical opportunities that couldn't be linked to any end-to-end process. That's not the case anymore. For every single RPA opportunity, we're able to assign it to an end-to-end process, and actually, because we use the same language, we're able to compare as well how different countries robotize exactly the same end-to-end process. So do we see the same opportunity in other units as well? Do we see 3 units working on robotizing exactly the same piece of the process? That has given us a big boost in terms of both scale and speed. I showed an example of core processes. That's an example of supporting processes. Again, we have units that work more on core. We have others that work more on supporting, but we use exactly the same language and classification of our RPA opportunities. RPA starts with an end-to-end process discovery. A year ago, when we would launch an RPA development, we would start with the intake. So typically, somebody in operations or in retail would approach our local CoE and say, hey, I have this great idea to robotize that activity. Then we would apply some criteria. I'm not going to go deep in the details of what the criteria are, but it's basically about volumes, it's about frequency, it's about the complexity or the simplicity of the task to robotize. Then, if the assessment would be positive, we would implement, so we would develop the scripts, we would test them, and then we would deploy them. And then we would sustain them with our infrastructure in terms of risk, in terms of custodians, in terms of making sure that we meet our global compliance goals. What we introduced a year ago was the discovery phase. And the way we start now every RPA opportunity identification is with the discovery phase. And, unsurprising, we run discovery as well from an end-to-end process perspective. How do we do that? First of all, we need to have a couple of prerequisites in place. Then, we follow a three-step approach to running the discovery, and then we always want to get a very tangible, value-driven output out of it. The prerequisites. When we look at the end-to-end process, we want to be very clear, and we do this in the preparation for discovery. We want to be very clear about which of the locations that we'll need to visit. How long is our RPA discovery going to last? Which of the end-to-end processes, or maybe even the broader scope of them, that we want to analyze when we run discovery? You get the point. Then, every end-to-end process that we run discovery for, we somehow go and see. It's not sufficient to just run interviews with the process stakeholders and participants, but you run at least short, on-the-shop floor Gemba visits. Then, we still talk to the SMEs, to the subject matter experts, and then we take this into prioritizing our opportunities. The outcome is a very clear definition of what are the processes to be improved, and again, which part is to be improved by robotics, and which parts can be improved in other way. Then, what the savings or the benefits are per process, and then, in terms of time and efforts, how we can prioritize these opportunities. You can imagine, again, in a very simplified fashion, the output of a discovery to look something like that. Okay? You have the end-to-end processes, you have the scenarios in the processes, and then you have the number of opportunities identified per lever. Okay? Running such a discovery is not very long. Typically, it takes a day to 3 days. We plan that for the most complex processes, maybe it's going to take 5 days. Most of the discoveries that we have run so far take 2 to 3 days on average. Okay? It's time well worth invested for us. Number 4, our global RPA infrastructure. We have a global infrastructure that we're now applying to all our units. We use Automation Anywhere as our external vendor. So in terms of RPA, it's the AA tooling. We have an internally developed RPA tool as well. It's called Robo Platform. It was actually developed in Poland. That started with robotics 10 years ago with us. And we're now trying to define very clearly the use cases for Automation Anywhere and for Robo Platform as well. We introduced last year a robot resource system so that we can address lots of risks and compliance issues that we have. So now, every user can request their own robot account, and robots generate their passwords on their own through the robot resource systems. So we eliminated all the risks in terms of compliance and fraud. And this infrastructure is now used across ING globally. I mentioned risks, and this is exactly the risk that I'm quoting. So these are the global risks that we need to comply with. One of them is cybercrime, hacking of robots, unauthorized changes to instructions or scripts of robots. Before introducing the robot resource system, actually an ops employee had to set up the passwords for robots. This is not the case anymore. Robots generate their own passwords, and that's completely risk-free. We meet these risk requirements now on a global scale, and again, why are we doing that globally? Because once we manage to mitigate the risks on a global level, no local unit needs to do that on their own. So this is the support that we're providing as a global CoE as well, among others. Let me list all of them. This is how the global CoE is organized. There is the Global Robotics Squad, which is part of my team, of the Global Process Management team. They sit in Amsterdam, this is just 4 people. And then we have 2 squads of IT custodians and scripters. They sit in Poland, which is also a low-cost location. The total number of people in these 2 is 12. So in total, we have 15, 16 people for robotics in the global CoE. Okay. What we do is, let me actually start with the custodians and the scripters. The custodians run the infrastructure. So all the robot accounts, all the risk mitigations, that's what they do. The scripters, that's our global scripting unit. We can send scripters to all local units that need to develop bots. And they do it following exactly the same approach, using exactly the same tool, and leveraging as well scripts from the different countries where we have implemented similar use cases. And then what we do in Amsterdam is we really run the framework. It's the global agreements, it's the benefits, it's the use cases, it's making sure that how we run RPA is fully in line with our process management approach. And then we still support all the local CoEs in the execution. We do that in the following way. We have local CoEs. We have around 17 of them now. So in all the local units, as well as in all of our support functions. The local units are really in charge of developing the scripts in the local unit. Developing the script and then maintaining the script as well. Using be it scripters from Poland, or we have a couple of other options as well that I'm going to show in a second. And then, they're also the ones that still do the intake with the local stakeholders in terms of identifying RPA opportunities bottom up and making sure that they comply with the global framework and our global process language. We have been experimenting with different implementation models. The jury is still out, but I think we're clearly shifting more from 1 to getting closer to 4. Let me just briefly go through the 4 models that we have in place. The first one is what I call the operator model. You take a subject matter expert from, say, operations or a retail unit, somebody who has an interest in robotics, not an IT person though. You basically train them to develop scripts. There are a couple of big benefits. So they really know their stuff. They know the process very well. And obviously, if they want to start developing scripts, they're willing to do so. So there's a great deal of energy and excitement. The changes are, typically these people do lots of other things as well. Capacity is an issue, speed is an issue, sometimes training and experience can be an issue as well. Second model, the consultant model. We take the extensions and the cognizance of this world and we use with their scripters to help us develop scripts either in a local unit or ideally as a vision globally as well. The benefit are these experienced guys. They can bring in scripting knowledge from other clients as well. They may help us with approaching an RPA opportunity in a different way, maybe in a way that we haven't thought about. They're expensive, and they don't let us build a sustainable model for growing RPA inside ING. We're still working with them, but we're working less and less. The third model, having scripting capacity in the local CoE. The local CoE, which I showed you here, so that would be another role that they could perform, actually having local scripters in the CoE as well. The benefit is, well, they really become part of the organization. The main challenge is that requires big upfront investment. And then if you don't have a sufficient demand for RPA scripting in the local unit, you really need to find a way to deploy these guys globally, which is a bit more difficult than if you do it on a global scale straight away. Which is the fourth model, which is our global scripters in Poland, that we're now deploying across multiple different units of ING. And you can see that we have even, the same unit still working with different models. Belgium is a great example. So Belgium still has the operator model, the consultant model, and now even the global scripting model. But we're clearly shifting more and more towards 3 and 4. What are the results so far? For about 2 years of global implementation and then looking at what the Netherlands and Poland had done in the years before, we have released around 400 FTE equivalent of capacity. We have introduced 1,300 bot runners, and we have achieved savings worth roughly 10 million euros. For a bank like ING, this is still scratching the surface. However, it's been a good start, and a start that already gives us quite some benefits. What's next? I think you have heard this in a couple of the other automation and RPA presentations over these 2 days as well. You typically start with RPA, then you move to cognitive RPA, then you move to chatbots, and then artificial intelligence. And again, they don't need to come in this sequence, so you may also do this in parallel, of course. But this is, if you will, the evolution. We're still somewhere here. We already know how to work with traditional RPA. We still need to grow the scale and speed to capture the full benefit speed. My estimate is that we've probably captured around 1/4, maybe 1/3 of the benefits that we can by just using simple traditional RPA globally. Moving to cognitive, we've been running proof of concepts over the last 1 year, again with Automation Anywhere and a couple of other vendors. We're using IQBot, and we find some very good use cases for cognitive RPA in banking as well. Our priority for this year is to increase the scope of the use cases and really move to implementation so that we start capturing benefits from cognitive RPA as well. We know it can work, that we're already convinced about, so it's time we captured some benefits. In terms of chatbots and artificial intelligence, we're still pretty much in the stage where we, playing with it. So we want to learn, experiment, and we're running a couple of pilots. We stay close to different vendors for new technologies that are popping up, but this is still not something that we can really commercialize and get, savings or customer value out of. This is where we are, and this is how we're thinking of at least the near future. This is what I wanted to tell you about. Let me open it up for questions.
Good job. Good.
Go ahead, please.
One of the slides that showed savings FTE reduced, is that the main part of your savings?
It's a mix of real savings and cost avoidance as well. And I witnessed this discussion in a couple of the breakouts as well. So how do you actually show, or how do you actually demonstrate that cost avoidance is really the outcome of the work that you do? We still have the benefit that we're growing very fast in many of our markets. We have lines of business, let me give you a couple of examples. Mortgages in Australia, consumer banking still in Western Europe, where we grow at 20-30% a year. And if we manage to achieve that growth without hiring additional people, we're not so fussy about, does this come from RPA or does this come also from something else? So when the benefit is there, we're not, jealous and competitive as to who's the main driver of it. So this is how we actually measure it. We really track business growth, and if we manage to achieve this business growth without cost investments, then we consider this to be real impact. However, we also have some real savings. So yes, we make people leave, if not the bank, if not the local unit, at least the line of business in which they're working, and we may redeploy them somewhere else.
Can I have a follow-up
Please.
question? We had a bit of a
Yeah, we did.
conversation, and organizations evolve. Sometimes they go from broad-based benefits to P&L benefits to by resource analytics of what happened, right? So one question I have for you is, how do you balance ROI with the people, the worry, the fear factor, the change management side of things? So you have to deliver money, but then you also have to figure out how to take care of people. How do you do that at ING?
Let me actually go back to one of the very first slides. Okay, here we are. So, first and foremost, we never position process management and end-to-end process improvements as a cost-cutting initiative. We clearly say, and we clearly state that we want to achieve a couple of benefits. One is improving productivity. But you can improve productivity by either reinvesting to achieve growth or by real cost reduction. We're also very explicit in terms of the customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction that we want to achieve. For RPA, we're still not at the point where we would say, we know that this RPA opportunity, or if we introduce this robot, it's going to increase customer satisfaction by X. We actually measure customer satisfaction at the level of the end-to-end processes. So let me stick to the mortgage lead to cash example. So this is where we would measure the productivity increase, as well as the customer satisfaction increase, as well as the employee satisfaction increase. However, for robotics, we're still able to say, well, we know that robotizing that part of the process is going to give us that much capacity reinvested or released, and this we track. In terms of the fear of employees, we're actually very afraid ourselves in the beginning that people might not perceive RPA in the right way. That fear is pretty much not there. I think we jump pretty quickly across the change of, convincing people that if you introduce a robot, the job will be gone and they will be out of job themselves. So we either reinvested the capacity somewhere else, or in the case of true headcount savings, these would have been processes that would have improved anyway. So maybe we're lucky, but we don't have much of an employee challenge there. I think we managed to create a pretty good case for change around robotics. Please.
What triggered, so you said you started really doing a lot of local automation, then you backed up, so let's take a little more holistic process view and drive through your new sequence. What triggered that change? What drove the change in your approach?
That's a great question. One, I think we just started acting way more globally in ING overall.
Okay.
Until 2 years ago, I would say we're, a group of banks. Now we want to be a banking group.
Sure.
And we're doing this not just for process management and robotics, we're doing this for multiple initiatives as well. So ING's culture is a very entrepreneurial one. Lots of things happen, bottom up and with the entrepreneurship and innovation of the local units, which is great. We don't want to lose that.
Sure.
However, we also tend to face situations where, 3 or 5 local banks will work on exactly the same thing at the same point of time. That's not the right efforts, or that's not, the right way to spend our time. This is why, as well, we want to create a case for change by saying, if we want to do things in a global way, we need to agree what the right global way is. But then if we really do things globally, then we don't replicate and don't repeat the same thing many times in our local units as well.
How difficult was that transition?
It's very difficult. It's still not complete, by far not. I think we've made good progress, or we are making good progress, but we're not there yet. It will take us 2 years.
With the 1,300 robots you have in production,
Yep.
Whose responsibility is the monitoring, nature, and care of those robots? Is it the local center of excellence? Is it global center of excellence? Can you talk a little bit about the monitoring and fix and repair?
Yep. The global CoE, so my team doesn't maintain the bots. We track the usage of the global licenses, we track the benefits. However, the maintenance is done in terms of making sure that the scripts run by the local CoEs, let me get here, by the local CoEs. And then in terms of implementing and running the infrastructure, so our private cloud, the robot account system, the risk mitigation factors, this is the global IT custodian squad.
I'm just gonna ask, because you're doing this in all these different countries, like, do you maintain an actual static architecture for all your value chains that these robotics actually adhere to, or is everybody kind of running their own process from end to end in Poland versus Italy or Austria?
Your question basically is, do we really have global process in place? No, we don't. No, we don't yet. So that will be my answer. But we're designing several, and we will implement this year.
Is that a realistic,
We think it's very realistic.
to actually
Yeah.
across ING have just one set of what, I saw one that you call it order to market or something like that?
Yeah, lead to cash. So we're working, we designed already last year 3 global processes: mortgage lead to cash, daily banking lead to cash, and consumer lending lead to cash. So we already have these processes on paper. What we're really doing now is we're preparing for implementation in local units. We want to have them implemented, if not fully, at least in some local units by the end of the year. So we think it's very realistic. It took us around 2 years of work to get to where we are. However, it is very realistic still, to put a disclaimer to it. Does it mean that we're going to have 100% exactly the same mortgage lead to cash process in all of our 15 countries? Likely not. Regulation still differs a lot. We still have different channels in different countries. We may still have even some different customer requirements and customer needs. But even for mortgages, which is pretty much the most complex retail business in banking, we think that we can be 70% same.
Does that mean you have to give up in terms of understanding overall performance, though, when you're having different levels of performance in different places? You're just going to understand that's a given?
We actually think that doing that is going to help us monitor and manage performance in a better way.
Better?
Yeah.
Kind of
We'll
different.
just be doing that in the same way across IG. Please.
So when you guys are looking at your flowchart part and you're picking whether the process is ready for automation, do you have like a certain threshold or desirable number of exceptions allowed that you would say, we'll automate this versus no, this really does need to be reprocessed?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
We do. It's not one single number, so it might differ by process or by type of process at least, but we do. Yeah. So we also have, and I was showing this here as well. So we have automation anywhere in the robot platform. One way we consider to be distinguishing between the two is we want to use automation anywhere for unattended use, and then basically we want to minimize the exceptions. And with robot platform, we still consider to be using it with human attended mode, and there we can allow ourselves a slightly greater deal of exceptions.
Okay.
But we typically want to stick to single-digit numbers,
Yeah.
percentage-wise in terms of exceptions. Yeah.
What percentage of your development are you doing with your internal tool versus automation? Where
80-20.
80 without
80-20. Yeah. Robot platform is really used in Poland very heavily, where it comes from, and then in a couple of the smaller units. So it's really heavily towards automation.
And is that where you're also getting most of your benefit?
We still consider using both. What we really need is, exactly the clarity of when to use one and when to use the other. We're making progress, but that line is not, clearly drawn. Please.
Thanks for the great presentation.
Thank you.
I also loved that you mentioned every end-to-end process should feed the customer experience. And I'm a very, very happy ING customer myself. So it feels that this is ingrained in ING culture. So can you share some insights, what tools you use to spread the customer love across the organization? How did you do that?
I think I might need lots of time to answer this question, but let me just give you a couple of suggestions. I think many good things start from the top. We have a CEO who is obsessed with customer experience. we call ING, or we want to call the ING brand a love brand. We want to become a love brand for customers, which, if you think of, how fond customers are of banks, it's not an easy thing. So we really want to be a love brand for a financial institution for our customers. And starting from our CEO, we communicate and we incentivize and we support local units to be that way. Another thing is we actually stay very close to customers. So we talk a lot to them in multiple different ways. As we're a very direct bank, like in Germany, I guess, where you come from, so we don't have any branches. Being direct allows us as well to research customer opinion and customer pain points in an easier way. But even in the countries where we're still very heavy on branches, we really take the opportunity to get out to customers and talk to them. And then, it's also in our values, in our principles. So we have an orange code behavior and staying a step ahead for customers, you saw it in the video as well, is really something that every new employee in ING will learn basically on their first day on the job. So this is a couple of basic things.
I guess we are at the end of our.
Thank you.
Thank you.